And we're back with an update to the Ava Baroni Combs situation. Considering how cryptic but implicit her posts were that something bad had happened to her, and since it was revealed that there were a number of claimants alleging to have been victimized by Diddy and associates when they were not adults, I thought I'd go back and see if she had responded to that in some way, and she has. There's also new developments in Diddy's federal trial after his appearance in court today, but before we get into that, I want to clear something up about the last video. The audio clips Ava had shared about a Diddy and Kanye situation to both TikTok accounts were not her speaking.
Aspect of being sexually assaulted, that's not what haunts me. It's this. It's as these two grown men were pawing at me, trying to take my clothes off, I look over to this man and asking for help, and I literally mouth the word help. And we lock eyes. And he looks away.
I thought it was fairly obvious that it was a clip she was sharing and not her voice, since I had said she'd posted cryptic messages. But in retrospect, it may not have been clear enough. I wasn't sure whose voice it was at the time, but I knew it sounded familiar and had been floating around amongst the recent Diddy news. I have since found that it was singer Nikki Heaton, who had originally shared her story on Instagram Live, and someone had recorded and uploaded it back in June of 2024.
It isn't actually the aspect of being sexually assaulted. That's not what haunts me. It's this. It's as these two grown men were pawing at me, trying to take my clothes off, I look over to this man asking for help, and I literally mouth the word help. And we lock eyes. And he looks away.
We will circle back to Nikki's story because it obviously means something to Ava. But as it stands, Ava has wiped most of her TikTok videos on both pages, leaving just a handful of her top viewed, and I guess you could say most generic TikTok videos, where she's lip-syncing to popular trending songs, and the one Nikki Heaton audio clip. If you haven't watched my previous video on Ava, I highly suggest checking that out first. She left us a lot of clues to better understand her situation, without her having to say anything directly herself, and that landscape has shifted now. She's changed her name to Jane Doe, and has posted some new content relating to the case as well. I should mention that the anonymous names Jane and John Doe in this specific case are being used for those who are not adults at the time the alleged crimes took place. It seems to me that Ava, like many of the others, is still living in fear of repercussion for speaking out. It also seems like she's purposely posting to different channels as different characters, if you will, two very different styles. And maybe she does only have the one account, but there are others that seem to serve as decoys in a way, which more so ensures that no one can be sure of what she actually looks like currently. She shared this segment of Tony Busby's press conference.
That many of these individuals were paid cash. We know that many of these individuals involved, whether they were the ones being assaulted and abused or they're witnessing other people being assaulted and abused and then paid and threatened and told to leave. Typically paid 10 grand in cash and told to leave. And then threatened as they were leaving. So in addition to Sean Combs, you should know the defendants in these cases we're going to file will include anyone, of course, who engaged in the assault or exploitation, anyone who participated in such in any way, anyone who encouraged or facilitated this conduct, anyone who was in the room and watched it happen but made no effort to stop it, any venue or venue owner who was aware of what was going on but failed to stop it, any individual or entity who knew about the conduct and benefited from it but did nothing to report it or stop it, and any individual or entity who covered it up or helped cover it up. These people who know who they are should just come forward now. I would imagine, as we speak here, there are a myriad of people who are very nervous. You can't hide skeletons in the closet forever. I would expect there are many people out there right now who are desperately searching their memories as they delete their texts and data. Now, although these are, in fact, individual cases, there is a common theme, an MO, if you will. Typically, the victim is lured into a situation where he or she is given a drink. Typically, that drink, reported by these victims, is apparently laced with something. Once that drink takes effect, the perpetrators perform all kinds of sexual acts on the victims, many times passing him or her around as other people watch and enjoy the show, and then leave the victim ashamed, confused, injured, and wondering what happened. When the victim reaches out, he or she is told not to say anything. Sometimes there are threats of physical violence or financial repercussions or bodily harm. The claims we intend to bring will include the following: violent assault or rape, sexual abuse, facilitated sex with a controlled substance, false imprisonment, compelling prostitution, sexual misconduct, dissemination of video recordings, abuse of minors.
And another post tagged with the "be a voice, not an echo" phrase, which she's attached to a trending TikTok sound.
I never asked to be a fighter, but life threw me in the pit and said, survive. So that's what I did. I've had to fight my way out of every situation and struggle in life. Nobody ever handed me anything for free. So you've got two choices. You either sit back and let life beat you up, or you make a decision to get up every day and fight. And let me tell you, it's not going to be easy. You're going to get tired and you're going to get exhausted. You're going to feel like you've lost battles. But as long as you never give up, you'll win the war. This is your time. This is your moment. You've been called and you've been equipped. Get up and fight.
She's clearly sending us a message with what she's choosing to share. The MO does seem to be mostly the same across the board, with some of these victims and witnesses who've come forward explaining different variations of similar events.
I posted a while ago. I did like a Q&A, right? And people were asking what's going on with you? Why did you leave the industry? Why did you fall off? Is the music industry as evil as people say it is? And I was like, it's more evil than you could possibly imagine. And I went into that to depth like a little bit, and I was like, oh wait, hold on. Let me add a moderator because this is gonna be crazy. There we go. Cool. I was like, I'm one of the lucky ones. I got out when I could. I was like lucky enough to only be like assaulted like twice, and I was fucked more than that, but it was 2 times that truly like left like an impact on me, and people were like, oh my god, like only twice, like stop diminishing what you went through, like no one should go through that. And I'm like, yeah, all right. And I was never actually going to tell this story, like ever. I was going to kind of like go to my grave with this because, you know, in my perspective, it's like, what's the point? Who would believe me? What good would it do? I don't have proof. I'm not going to file anything. But because of recent events and the things that have come to light quite recently, I felt the need to kind of come on here, and I feel like it was my time to kind of just tell this story. And it's pretty much one of the reasons that I lost a lot of my love for music in that sense, like making it public in that sense. So I was 19, and if you know anything about me, I, went viral at 18 on WorldStar and then on YouTube, and like kind of rose to fame really quickly. And I was doing rap covers, so a lot of rappers were reaching out to me and asking to work. Sorry, I'm getting real-time feedback right now. So all of a sudden, like, people were reaching out and wanting to work, and I was 19 years old. Like, I had just left home, and working with my manager, and we were in LA and doing all these crazy things. And all of a sudden I got a call one day and it's like, hey, like Kanye wants you to come to the studio. And we were just like, what? Like Kanye knows who I am? Like what? This is crazy. So we go. And this happens like multiple times. Like you can find it if you go back and find headlines, you'll find proof of it. Like we were working with Kanye and he was like, I want to know what you're doing in your new music. Like I want to hear your tracks. I want to play you mine. I want to know what you're doing with this fashion stuff, because like your style is like so fucking cool. And if you go in deep dig enough, like he said it publicly, like you and LP were, you know, the muse for Yeezy season 1, because like he went back and asked like, oh my god, you guys are like so fucking cool, like you wear like shapewear is real clothes, like that's so dope, like blah 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 blah, and like had his people go through my wardrobe, and he wanted me to be the model for Yeezy season 1, and I went and I flew there and I did all this shit, and I was like, I'm not fucking doing this. Like there was something just not right about it. Anyway, every time we would go to the studio with him, it was like, yeah, he wanted to work on music, but there was something just like fucking weird about it. Like he would pull up his laptop and he would have like bookmarks of all of our pages and like our Instagrams, our Snapchat, Twitter, all of that, and like our pictures saved. And even now, like even like a year ago, I'm still getting DMs from people in the industry like, yo, like me and Kanye used to sit in the studio for hours talking about you and your manager, like he was obsessed with you. And I was like, whoa, okay, crazy. Anyway, back to me being 19 years old. This was probably the last time that we went to the studio. We got a call. It was late. We were living in LA. And we get a call and it's like, hey, like, yeah, he wants you to come to the studio. And we're like, cool. Like, why? And he's like, he wants to work on music. And we're like, that's great. And so we go. And it's like somewhere in LA, some studio we've never been to before. And we show up and walk in. And it's, we're there to work on music, right? Like, that's why I'm here. And we walk in and it's Kanye and it's Diddy. And, you know, a couple of people that we know, men, you know, an executive that worked with Kanye, Kanye's engineer, and Kanye's cousin. And we walk in and we're like, okay, cool. And it's immediately, I was like, there's something not right. There's something not right about this. Because we walk in and there's 9 other women there. And don't kill me for this, because this is what they call them. There were 9 studio hoes there. Like, I'm all about women's rights, do whatever you want to do, but don't shoot the messenger. That's what they call them. Women who show up to the studio in their full club outfit at the studio. It's like, they're only there for one reason. They want to leave with someone who's there. And they're called studio hoes. That's just what they're called. And there are 9 women there. And we're like, that's weird. I thought we were here to work on music. And like, we were invited, like I was invited as an artist and my manager. So I'm wearing like fucking XXL sweatpants and like a giant hoodie. I look like a fucking slob. And like, you know, my manager's there in her usual suit, like black leggings, black zip up. Like we're just like, this is strange, but okay. And we walk in and there's all these ladies there wearing their club gear, and Kanye and Diddy are already like out of their fucking mind. Just like completely fucked up. Drunk, but probably something else. And we're like, okay, but like we were invited as artists. Like maybe these girls are gonna leave and we're gonna work on music. Like, let's just walk in and just, yeah. Immediately, I felt like there was something weird. Because, you know, there's always drinks. There's always, you know, the vodka and the mixers just like sitting on the table. But we walk in and immediately, and Diddy hands me a drink. Kanye hands Lauren a drink. And we're like, that's weird. Like, why are they serving us? And I don't like to drink. Like, I don't like alcohol. I don't like the way that it like makes me feel. It makes me feel sick. So, but my manager, since the beginning, she was just like, I know you don't like to drink, but if someone famous hands you something to drink, even if you don't want it, just like hold it and like pretend, because you don't want to seem rude. And I was like, okay. And it was like a vodka cranberry. And I was like, oh, gross. And so I'm just standing there with my back against the console, just like pretending to sip this drink. And I'm like, I'm not fucking drinking this. This is gross. And my manager was sitting across on this couch with Kanye's cousin, and then the other girls were sitting next to her. And Kanye kept looking at Lauren, and like they were exchanging glances, and I'm like, they're like watching me strangely. And I'm like, okay, let me pretend to drink, and like I'm not actually doing it. And like that seemed to like make them happy, like me like pretending to like join in. And immediately I'm like, there's something fucking in this drink. There's something in this drink. And I didn't know what to do. And I like, my manager was like across the room, but like close enough, but like not next to me, so I couldn't like whisper to her. But I wanted to tell her, I'm like, hey, don't fucking drink this. There's something wrong with this. But I couldn't. So I reach for my phone and I start to type, and Kanye takes the phone out of my hands and he's like, who are you texting? Like, you don't need to text anyone. Like, we're having a party. And I was like, okay. And he like puts it on one of the speakers. And I'm like, fuck. Now what do I do? Like, I don't know what to do. And I see my manager take a sip. And I'm like, fuck. Now what do I do? And then I see her take another sip. 2 sips out of this little vodka cranberry cup. And I'm like, oh, what do I do? 2 sips, and I watch her face flush. And all of a sudden, like I look over and she's speaking really loud and like making jokes. And I'm like, whoa, like this isn't her. Like she doesn't make jokes. She's fucking terrified of people. Like she doesn't even talk. And I was like, it's already hitting her. Like 100%, I just knew that the drinks were all laced with something. And she starts like almost being like belligerent a little bit, but not in like a crazy way, just like really enjoying herself. And I'm like, that's not her. She doesn't even want to be here. Like, this is weird. And all of a sudden she like dismisses the studio host. Like, she's like, you can leave. And I'm like, oh my God, like what's going on? And the girls file out. They go to like a different studio, or they go somewhere. And I'm like, I have to do something. I have to do something. What do I do? And I go to get my phone where Kanye put it on one of the speakers. And as I'm going to get it, I turn and my manager's walking out. And I'm like, no. Like, where are you going? And she's like, it's fine. I'm just going to the bathroom. And I was like, no, stay. And she's like, it's right there. I'm just going to go to the bathroom. And I was like, okay. And she walks out. And all of a sudden, I realize that I'm in this studio. The music's low, the lights are dim, but you can still like see everything. And I realize that I'm in the studio with Diddy and Kanye, and they're both off their shit. And there's 3 other men, an executive that works with Kanye, his engineer, and his cousin, and me. Alone. And I'm like, oh, fuck. Okay. And I haven't started freaking out yet. Like, I know what the situation is. I know, like, I know this is a bad place to be in, but I don't really feel scared yet, you know? Like, because I'm like, there's other people around. There's other men around, and I know them. Like, I've known them for a while. Like, nothing bad's gonna happen. And I'm standing there, and I realize that so this is like a pretty, like, sizable studio. There's, like, the glass doors, the couch there, a console, another console, the screen, all of that. But it's, like, it's pretty big, but you can still see and talk to everyone easily. And I realize that I'm standing really close to the exit. And it's a glass door, and it opens in. And I'm standing pretty close to it. And I realize all of a sudden that Kanye and Diddy have realized that I'm the only girl in the room. And they're like fucked out of their minds. And they start coming towards me, and they're like, don't you want to take your clothes off? Like, it's so hot in here. And I'm like, no, fine. I'm fine like this. And they're like, come on, like, it's just us. Like, we're all just friends. Like, let us just, like, see, like, how you look. And I'm like, okay, I'm fine. And, like, I still haven't gotten scared yet, you know? Like, I'm still, like, this is a bad situation. I'm creeped out, but, like, there's no reason to panic. There's other men here. Yeah, so they're coming towards me, and I'm like, okay, this is fucked. I don't know where my manager is. I don't know where anyone is. And they're coming towards me more, and they're trying to like take my clothes off. And I'm like at that point where I'm like, this is not good, but I'm like still trying to like play it off. Just like, stop, you guys are fucking stupid. Like, get out of here. Like, don't touch me. Okay, no, it's back. Okay, so let me just get to the point. So they start trying, like, they're like pawing at me. Like, they're both drunk, probably on something else. And I start to get a little bit apprehensive because I'm pretty much like backed up against the wall. Like there's only one exit and I'm pressed up against this door. And I'm still not completely terrified yet, but I'm like, you guys stop, like stop. And they're getting to the point where they have like ripped my shirt off. And like I'm like almost fully exposed at this point. And they're both coming at me. And I'm like, you guys, like seriously, this isn't funny anymore. And I look to my left where his executive is. Like we know him pretty well. Like we've been around him a lot. He's literally 3 feet away from me. Like if I reached and he reached too, like we could touch, like he's that close. And I look and I'm like, hey, like I give that look where I'm just like, come on, like step in, like this isn't cool. Like you're a grown man, like you're like 50 years old. I know you have a family, like you know this isn't right, like do something. And this is the part that for as long as I live, I will never fucking forget. It isn't actually the aspect of being sexually assaulted. That's not what haunts me. It's this. It's as these 2 grown men were pawing at me, trying to take my clothes off, I look over to this man asking for help, and I literally mouth the word help. And we lock eyes. And he looks away. I'm like, okay, there's 2 more men in the room. And I look to his engineer next, who's sitting right next to him. And I know that he's married and he just had a little baby girl. And I'm like, okay, he's gonna do something. And I look at him next and I'm like, okay, like do something, say something, do anything. And he looks down at his phone and starts texting. And then I was like, oh, fuck. I look at Kanye's cousin next. And I'm like, do something, you know, like fucking do something. And he spins his chair around. And that's when that like gut-wrenching fear set in. And I was like, oh shit. No one's fucking saving me tonight. No one's gonna do anything. No one's gonna do fucking anything. And that's when I was truly fucking scared. At this point, they had ripped my shirt off and they were trying to get my pants off. And I realized that I was completely alone. And I closed my eyes for a second. And I was like, God help me. What do I do? And as my eyes were closed, this is going to sound weird because I bet a lot of you are wondering, like, how the fuck did you get out of this situation? My eyes were closed and I prayed. And I said, God help me, what do I do? And it was like clear as day, I heard this in my head. And it didn't make any sense. I heard, go towards them. And I was like, oh, fucking great. The one time I asked God for help, Satan answers, because why the fuck would I go towards these 2 predators who are sexually assaulting me? Like, why would I do that? And then all of a sudden it clicked. My back was up against the glass wall. I could not go any further back. That was the only exit. He said, go towards them. They were already drunk off their shit. They were fucked up. So I lunged forward. I stepped forward. And it like threw them off balance. Like they were like, oh, you know, and like they stepped back at least 1.5 feet. And the moment that they did, I reached behind my back, I pulled the door and I slipped out, grabbing my clothes. And I ran across the hall, across this corridor, and I hid inside of an empty studio that was black. And I sat there for like 20-25 minutes, just like crying, like, what the fuck do I do? And I'm texting my manager and she's not answering. I mean, I got us both out and I got us in an Uber, and she obviously didn't remember anything because she was drugged and I wasn't. And apart from the aspect of, you know, looking for help and they turned away, the only other thing that really, really fucks with me is, what about all those other girls that were there? Those 9 other girls. who were drinking the drinks before we even got there. Like, I know none of them got out. I know none of them got saved that night. And I'm like, did they even fucking remember? Did they even know what happened to them? Moral of the fucking story, stay out of the industry. If you have daughters, make sure to tell them that they're idols they should never meet, and to never fucking go to the studio with anyone, even if you're invited there as an artist, unless you have a bodyguard with you. You know, I thought I'd feel better after telling that story, but I really don't. But I guess the point is that, I mean, the same shit happened with Cassie. As soon as she said what happened, no one believed her, and they gave her so much shit. And it wasn't until videos came out and more people stepped forward, people were like, oh, she was telling the truth. And I'm here to warn you guys that more people are going to come forward.
Seems like Nikki was one of the lucky ones. Hopefully Ava as well. And part of the reason she resonates with Nikki's story and her sudden depart from what had become her family unit. However, the snippet she shared of the press conference may suggest otherwise. It's not really our business, and it's not really about Ava Baroni, Nikki Heaton, Allison Carter, or any of the current alleged victims at the end of the day. They're each just one more example of how the industry can chew you up, spit you out, or in some cases, swallow you whole. You don't have to believe in spirituality or the draining of energy or anything like that to know that there are ways to consume and or diminish one's spirit. Take one's light away, push them to their limits, and leave them feeling lost and empty, as if they've done something wrong, when they are in fact the victim in the situation.
As Sean Diddy Combs sits behind bars awaiting trial on federal sex trafficking and racketeering charges, we take a deep dive into the growing list of high-profile celebrities charged with sexual misconduct. We start with Harvey Weinstein. In April, the New York Court of Appeals overturned Weinstein's 2020 and sexual assault conviction and ordered a new trial. A retrial is set for November. Weinstein maintains his innocence and that all sexual encounters were consensual. Harvey Weinstein, once a Hollywood powerhouse, was accused by some 80 women, including Ashley Judd, of sexual assault and prosecuted in New York and California. He was acquitted of a 2010 sexual battery allegation, but a mistrial was declared for 2 other accusers. In 2020, he was convicted of rape and sexual assault, though New York's highest court later overturned his 23-year sentence.
This today is an act of institutional betrayal.
His defense attorney, Arthur Aidala.
So the Court of Appeals deserves a tremendous amount of credit for doing this, based on the law, not based on opinion polls.
Weinstein's legal troubles were far from over. In 2022, he was convicted of rape and assault in Los Angeles and recently indicted on new charges in New York, where he remains behind bars. Weinstein maintains all sexual encounters were consensual. I believe I can fly. R&B singer R. Kelly was sentenced in federal court in New York and Chicago for sexually abusing underage girls and recording it. In New York, the I Believe I Can Fly singer was sentenced to 30 years on sex trafficking and racketeering charges, followed by a 20-year sentence for child pornography and enticement charges in Chicago. The 2 men who once teamed up for the hit song Satisfy You now face similar accusations. Like Kelly, Diddy is being held on sex trafficking and racketeering charges. Diddy is being held in the same jail as Kelly once was, Brooklyn's troubled Metropolitan Detention Center. Unlike Kelly, Diddy is also charged with transporting individuals for prostitution.
Combs abused, threatened, and coerced victims to fulfill his sexual desires,
reportedly drugging his victims for compliance. Prosecutors report Diddy held private freak-offs where victims were drugged, beaten, and forced to participate while he recorded and masturbated. Diddy's attorney.
He's going to fight this with all of his energy and all of his might and the full confidence of his lawyers, and I expect a long battle with a good result for Mr. Combs.
Diddy faces more than 130 lawsuits, mostly by Houston attorney Tony Busby.
Our youngest victim at the time of the occurrence was 9 years old. We have an individual who was 14 years old.
Now, Diddy is expected to appear in a federal courthouse tomorrow on racketeering, conspiracy, sex trafficking and transportation to engage in prostitution charges. His attorney says he maintains his innocence and is eager to prove his case. Houston attorney Tony Busby, who represents more than 120 accused victims, says he plans to start filing lawsuits this week against Diddy and the music mogul's cohorts. Now, meanwhile, the Supreme Court declined R. Kelly's appeal on Monday, which means the singer will remain behind bars.
Well, new tonight, another woman is accusing Backstreet Boys singer Nick Carter of sexually assaulting her when she was just 15 years old. According to the lawsuit filed in Clark County yesterday, a Pennsylvania woman, only identified by the initials AR, claimed that in August of 2003, Carter raped her in a cabin of a yacht in Florida. She claims she was drunk at the time and that he told her to keep it a secret. She says she repeatedly asked him to stop. Well, Carter's legal team responding to these latest allegations. Now, the statement reads in part, quote, "When AR first accused Nick Carter almost 2 decades ago, authorities listened and thoroughly investigated and then informed AR that her allegations were meritless." End quote. Carter is set for a hearing on a different lawsuit tomorrow morning.
If you'd asked me when I was 5 years old what I wanted to be when I grew up, it was I wanted to be famous.
The clowns, Randy, they're here. Sure enough, by 11, Nathan was an actor in a low-budget horror. Its director, Victor Salva, was a friend of Nathan's mum.
His grooming process was developing my love and trust and developing my parents' trust. The first time that I remember there being any kind of touching or abuse, I was staying the night at his house, his apartment, and we were watching movies, and one of the movies he put on to watch was Jungle Book. He got 2 bandanas and tied them together and made this loincloth, and as he's tying them, he's like fondling me, and that's like my first memory of when the abuse started, and eventually it progressed over the next 5 years. Videotape all of it. I mean, it was full blown.
When they found out, Nathan's family went to the police and Salva was convicted and jailed. But that hasn't affected his Hollywood career.
The neighbors talk about him like he's some kind of a phantom.
Powder, one of the scripts he wrote in prison, was distributed by Disney's Buena Vista Pictures. And he directed the Jeepers Creepers franchise.
What happened here happened before.
He's been coddled completely by certain members of Hollywood, and big names in Hollywood have been backing him and throughout the entire process. It just seems like and Victor's a part of that club.
I've heard many stories of kids going to an agent who can control their career and put them into auditions. And so the agent's spending time alone with the child. They're able to sort of, unfortunately, get them away from parental supervision. And then they take advantage of these kids. And it's more common, I think, than we can even imagine.
Hollywood might not like talking about it, but it doesn't take a lot of digging to find even more examples of how it often has selective amnesia when it comes to some of the past behaviour of those it chooses to welcome into the fold. In 2004, actor Brian Peck was convicted of having sex with a child, but has since worked on the kids' show The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody.
Do you like the design?
3 words. Hit the us.
And anger management.
You got to realize how many studios may have protected people that they knew what they were doing wrong, that knew it, should have got rid of them a long time ago.
Todd Bridges, who starred in one of the 70s biggest sitcoms, was arrested by his publicist.
I'm one of the few children, that have, got rid of it and still around. Most of my proteges have died or they committed suicide or OD'd, because they couldn't get over it and stuff that happened to them.
Corey Feldman and Corey Haim were 2 of the biggest child stars of the 80s. Both said they were abused by paedophiles during that time.
I know that there's thousands others that have experienced what I've experienced in the entertainment industry. I also know that there's peers of mine who know exactly what I'm talking about and know all the details, but have been afraid to come forward with their own truths.
The Weinstein scandal has triggered a domino effect, with hundreds of people coming forward with allegations of abuse by other powerful figures. For decades, they were dismissed, discredited, and paid off. But will this be enough of a catalyst to finally force Hollywood to oust its abusers? Katie Spencer, Sky News in Hollywood.
Sean Diddy Combs is expected to return to court. The music mogul is facing federal charges of racketeering and sex trafficking. Combs has been in a New York City jail since last month when his request for bond was denied twice. ABC News legal contributor, trial attorney Brian Buckmeyer joins me now for more on this.
So Dan and court were expecting the parties with their new attorneys to be there to make the arguments not only that Sean Combs should be released, arguing that the bail was denied inappropriately in the past, but also just a scheduling of the case. They're looking to move forward in this case by saying what evidence the defense is likely to receive, what, if any, motions should be filed in the coming days. It's basically an opportunity for both parties to kind of get the ball rolling towards an inevitable trial.
Brian Combs also hired a new defense attorney. What more do you know about him?
Yeah, so Anthony, or Tony Rico, as many people know him, is kind of like the godfather of federal defense, both in terms of his death penalty work. I think he's done over 50 death penalty cases across the country, as well as being well known as a Harlem native and working in the Southern District of New York. To give you some context, I'll say this. I probably would say that I'm a fairly decent defense attorney. I have a pretty decent record when it comes to trials and whatnot. The people that I look up to as being great defense attorneys, they look up to Tony Rico as being great themselves. And so he's at a different level, I think, when it comes to defense. I'm not saying that just because he's on the team, Sean Combs is going to be found not guilty, but this is probably one of the strongest people to be able to defend him in a case like this.
And Brian, last week a Texas attorney said he's representing 120 alleged victims, both men and women, who claim Combs sexually assaulted them. So how could these lawsuits impact the criminal case?
So Tony Busby, the attorney you were talking about, brought those cases, and he said that I think over 3,000 people had reached out to him, but he's only representing 120. He himself says that a number of those cases need to be vetted. So I think what we're going to see is those claims get vetted. We'll see what is strong, what is not, and what is not a claim in of itself altogether. But if those sources, if those alleged victims do have strong corroborating information or new facts, we could potentially see more witnesses in a federal case, other federal cases across the country, as Tony Busby says, that these claims come out of Georgia and Florida and other states. But we can also see potentially a superseding indictment where there be more charges and more alleged victims in the Sean Combs case out of the Southern District of New York.
Diddy's most recent court appearance on October 10th, 2024, resulted in a pushback to the decision on whether or not he'll be granted bail. His legal team requested a gag order, which was denied, but the prosecutors and defense agreed to not speak with the media going forward. Whether Tony Busby will continue to give updates or not is yet to be seen. The 120-plus cases he's building are separate from the current federal trial, and there was no word on whether or not he was present for today's trial. There have been reports that there will be more federal charges being filed against Diddy, with mentions of a superseding indictment. The Diddy trial could begin as early as May 2025, as his legal team is requested to expedite the submission of federal evidence and the upcoming trial. With there being terabytes of digital evidence to go through, the feds will need to kick it into high gear as to still be able to be thorough in their investigation. There's a much bigger problem being highlighted here that we need to focus on. And in my upcoming videos, we're going to be diving headfirst into the rabbit holes that lead straight to the kids. I'm going to be keeping my thumb on the jugular of this ugly head of society. So please make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll catch you on the flip side.